Chapter 28. A $250,000, 2 guns, and a dead man. Griffin was so cold. His whole body vibrated, and each time he shivered, it ran down his leg to his ankle. It felt like the ends of the bone were grating together, but he couldn't stop shaking. He remembered shaking like this in the burn unit. The nurses had told him it was shock, and then wrapped the unburned parts of his body in white blankets, warm from a special dryer. He tried to tense his body so that he would stop shaking, but it didn't help any. Every shiver was echoed by a wave of pain that radiated from his ankle to his pelvis. Trying to conserve the little heat he had, Griffin curled on his side, but he was still just as cold, if not worse, and now a new side of him was wet. The backs of his clothes were already stiffening with ice. He didn't know how long he lay there before something roused him out of himself. At first, Griffin thought he was imagining it, but then he definitely heard something. He corrected the thought, someone, moving through the forest, and voices, too. He couldn't make out any words, but the tones were familiar. Jimbo and TJ arguing. That was familiar, too. "We just go back to the house and take the truck and go," said Jimbo. "Go before Roy has a chance to rethink this. Screw them, we've got our money." "But where are we supposed to go?" TJ sounded confused. "Don't you get it? There isn't any more supposed to. We can do what we want. We each have $250,000. I think I'm going to Brazil. I've always wanted to go to Carnival." "What about TJ?" "What about you?" Jimbo echoed. "Am I going with you?" Jimbo didn't say anything for a few seconds. Then he said, "Maybe it's time we did things on our own." "Hey!" Griffin yelled. "Hey!" He levered himself up on one elbow, ignoring how much it hurt to move. "What the heck was that?" TJ sounded spooked. "It's Griffin, dummy," Jimbo said. "Hey, Griff, where are you?" "Over here. I'm hurt." A few seconds later, they were standing over him. Well, 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 what happened here? Jimbo seemed to be dressed in every coat he owned. He stood with one fist on his hip. The other hand held a rifle. TJ stood 2 paces behind, holding his own gun. "I'm hurt. I was trying to track Cheyenne down when I stepped into a hole." Griffin pointed. "My ankle's broken." He looked past them. "Where's my dad?" "Driving the roads looking for her," TJ said, turning to Jimbo. He took a cell phone from his pocket. "Should we call Roy?" "You're going to have to call someone," Griffin said. "I can't walk. You need to get someone out here to help me." "Hold on a minute, Tej." Jimbo cocked his head. "Where's Cheyenne?" "She hit me in the head and knocked me out. Didn't you see my note?" "We saw the note." TJ leaned closer to look at Griffin's ankle. He shook his head. "Did you find her?" "I was getting close right before I stepped into the hole. I could hear her over there." Griffin pointed in the opposite direction from the way Cheyenne had gone. "But before you go looking for her, could you call my dad?" "He's busy, just like we are," Jimbo said, "trying to find the stupid girl you let slip through your fingers." Griffin didn't like the way this was going. "Then, could you carry me out? I can't put any weight on my foot at all." TJ stretched his free hand in Griffin's direction, but Jimbo touched his arm and he stopped. Then Jimbo pointed at something with the nose of his rifle. "What's that?" Griffin looked. Lying next to him was the striped scarf Cheyenne had worn around her neck. It must have come off when she lost her balance and fell trying to help him up. I don't know." "Hey, that's Cheyenne's," TJ said slowly. "I thought you said you didn't catch up to her." "I didn't." It seemed painfully clear he was lying. "She just dropped it here and I found it." It made sense, but he should have said it first thing. Now they would figure out he had let her go. "You just found it," Jimbo said, "lying in the bushes." "Yeah, that's how I knew I was getting close." "Okay, Griff, what really happened? Did you get her back for whacking you upside the head?" Jimbo grinned. I guess the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. He looked around. So, where did you put her? What are you talking about? TJ shook his head. Never mind, he said. It's nothing you need to know. Jimbo looked back at Griffin, a sly grin playing across his face. Where do you think your mama's been all these years? Chicago, Griffin said. But when he said the word out loud, it seemed silly somehow. With her family. He had always wondered if she had remarried, maybe had another family, a kid who didn't have scars. I told you, don't tell him, TJ said urgently. He doesn't need to know. Jimbo didn't pay any attention. Chicago? He echoed, Griffin sarcastically. Uh-huh, eating deep dish pizza and listening to jazz? Why? Griffin sat all the way up, ignoring the screaming pain in his leg. Is she like in Portland or something? Portland, that's a good one, Jimbo muttered. Portland. TJ sighed. She's been out in the back, Griffin, underneath the Honda quarter panel. We buried her out there. What? Griffin didn't even feel shock. He just felt nothing, like he was falling, and there would never be anything to catch him. Roy's always had a temper, you know that, Jimbo said, shrugging. Well, things went crossways between him and Janie when you were in the hospital. She was always ragging on him about you getting burned, and one night he gave her a little shove when she had been getting into his face. She tripped and her head hit the fireplace. He left her there to teach her a lesson and went to bed. And when he got up, she was stone cold dead. No, Griffin said. He shook his head violently, not caring that it might jostle his leg. No! Even though he could picture it in his head, even though he could see it more clearly than he could see Jimbo and TJ, he started to stand, needing to get to his feet, and then fell back with a cry. His mother was dead? Look at him, Jimbo said in a flat, unaccented voice, like a hypnotist. If we leave him here, then how long is he going to last? I mean, look at him. TJ turned, and together the two men regarded Griffin as calmly as if he were something they had found by the side of the road. His skin's already kind of blue. We'll just tell Roy we never saw him and let nature take its course, and that way we'll know he'll never tell anybody about the money. It was like Griffin wasn't even there. TJ cocked his head to one side. But what about Rory? That's not our problem, dummy, Jimbo said. If he wants to come out in the woods and start looking, then so be it. We'll be long gone by then. You're just going to let him freeze to death? TJ seemed to have finally grasped what Jimbo was saying. He's already halfway there, Jimbo said calmly. Why do we have to intervene? Griffin thought it couldn't get much worse, but his blood turned to ice at TJ's next words. Geez, if I had a dog like that, I'd shoot him. TJ pointed his handgun at Griffin's midsection. Griffin froze. Jimbo pushed the barrel of the gun aside. Don't be stupid. You do that, and they'll go looking for who shot him. You leave him just like he is, and it will be clear that what happened. He caught his foot in a hole. He broke his ankle, and he died. End of story. Nobody asks any questions, and nobody's in trouble. I'm not stupid. We'll bury him out here. I'm tired of you saying I'm stupid. Griffin's hand closed on a fist-sized rock. It was ridiculous, like using a slingshot against a bazooka, but he wasn't going to die just lying on his back on the icy ground. I told you, TJ repeated when Jimbo didn't respond. Don't call me stupid. Why not? It's the truth, Jimbo shrugged. You are stupid. It's way too much work to bury him, but that's just like you. You never think things through. Then a gun went off, and Griffin's heart stopped. But it was Jimbo who collapsed on the pine needles. There, TJ said. Who's stupid now? Who's stupid now, Jimbo? He was breathing hard. Griffin's ears were ringing. He did not move a muscle. He was dead now. It was only a matter of time until TJ made it official. But then TJ dropped the gun and leaned over, his hands on his knees. Vomit splattered on the pine needles. Griffin cut his eyes toward Jimbo and then wished he hadn't. He adjusted his head a couple of inches so that he wouldn't accidentally see the body again. Straightening up, TJ wiped his mouth with the back of his hand. "I've never done that before," he said. "It's different than you think." Griffin was afraid to even meet TJ's eyes. When he finally did, he saw TJ's pupils looked too big, and his face looked like he was about ready to laugh or cry, or both. "Oh well," TJ said, "there is one good thing. Jimbo finally shut up." His laugh was high-pitched. It sounded like glass breaking. Griffin heard TJ go over to the body, but he still refused to look. Jimbo had landed on his side. He heard TJ pull the backpack off of Jimbo's back. TJ walked back into Griffin's line of sight. "It's half yours," he said, hefting the backpack. "That's okay. I don't need any." TJ unzipped the backpack. There was a long silence. "It's wet." "Why is the money all wet?" His voice arched higher. He reached in and grabbed a fistful of money, pulled it out. Red drops speckled the snow. "It's blood. Oh my God, it's blood." He dropped the money and then the backpack. A bill floated down and landed by Griffin's hand. One end of it looked like it had been dipped in red paint. TJ found a little patch of snow. He knelt down and began to wipe his hands on it like it was a towel, washing his hands in the snow. It quickly turned slushy and pink, and then he stood up without saying another word to Griffin and walked away, leaving Griffin with a broken ankle, a bloody backpack filled with $250,000, 2 guns, and a dead man.